Hello, welcome to the course BH6B13E Computational Physics. The contents of today's lecture is taken from Core Python Programming by R. Nageshwar Rao. We will continue to discuss topics from Module 1, Introduction to Python Programming. In today's class, we will get familiarized with two important data types in Python, list and set. First, let's talk about list. List is an ordered collection of distinct objects. List is defined by a pair of square brackets. So inside that you can have a number of elements and the elements could be completely different. You can have a list of integer numbers, list of floating numbers, list of strings, or a combination of all these three. So that's what I have shown here. I have a list A. Inside that I have numbers 1, 2, 3. These are integers. Then another element is 4.0. This is a float, and the final element is a string. And this is an ordered collection, which means each element has a specific index. So just like the case of string, the indexing starts from 0. So the first element is actually 0th indexed element. So you can actually say this is the 0th element. So 0th element, first element, second element, third element, and fourth element. And you can access each element using the index. So when I say A0, it will give me the value of the first element, which is 1. Similarly, when I say A4, I get the last element, which is Python. And in the case of string also, this is applicable. Each element has two indexes. One is the normal index, which I have just mentioned, and another one is the negative index. So negative index starts from the last element. So last element by default has a negative index -1, and second last element has a negative index -2, so on and so forth. So you can always access the last element using the negative index -1. So when I say A of -1, Python will fetch me the last element of the list. Similarly, when I say A of -2, sorry for the typo here, this should be A. When I say A of -2, Python fetches me the second last element, which is 4. List is mutable. We can change the order of elements, we can add new elements, as well as we can remove existing elements. And just like string, list also can be sliced. You can extract a part of the list, and the instruction is very similar to the instructions for strings. Suppose you have a list A equal to 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and when I say A0 colon 3 colon 3, so it will start slicing from the 0th element all the way to 3 minus 1, which is the second element, with a step size of 1. So you get a list starting from the 0th element, which is 1, all the way to second element, which is 3, with a step size of 1. So your result is going to be 1, 2, 3. Let's do another example. A of 0 colon 3 colon 2. So your starting element is the 0th element 1, and your final element is 3 minus 1, which is the second element 3, and step size is 2. So you get 0th element and step size is 2. So the next element will be skipped and you get the second element 1 and 3. If you don't specify anything in the first position, it will always start from the default position 0. And if you don't specify the step size, the default step size is 1. So when you say A, nothing colon 3 colon nothing, then it will start from the 0th element all the way to the second element with step size 1. You get the result 1, 2, 3. Similarly, if you don't specify anything in the middle, this is the ending element, right? If you don't specify anything, it will by default go to the last element. So when I say A of 0 colon nothing colon 2, it will start from the 0th element all the way to last element with a step size of 2. So you get 0th element, second element, and the last element 1, 3, 5. So this is how you extract a part of the list using the slicing operation. Let's now get familiarized with a few important functions pertaining to the list data type. First one is function remove. So list dot remove x. This removes the first item from the list whose value is x. For example, if A is list 1 to 1, when you say A dot remove 1, the first element with value 1 will be removed. So here I have two values 1 here. So the first one will be removed. So the answer is going to be list 2 comma 1. Next function is count. List dot count x. It returns the number of times element x appears in the list. So when I take list A equal to 1 to 1, when I say A dot count 1, it counts the number of times element 1 appeared in the list. So this is 2. Next is sort function. List dot sort. So this basically sorts the elements in the list. It sorts in the ascending order. So if you have list A equal to 3, 4, 1, 2, 5, when you say A dot sort, it arranges the elements in the ascending order, in the increasing order. So the result is going to be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Similarly, if you want to reverse the elements in the list, you can use the reverse function, list dot reverse. So if your list is A equal to 1, 2, 3, when you say A dot reverse, you get the output 3, 2, 1. Now, another important function is append. List dot append x. It basically adds the element x towards the end of the list. So when you have original list A equal to 1, 2, 3, suppose you want to add an element 4 at the end of the list, you say A dot append 4. So your output is going to be 4 added to the end of the list, which is 1, 2, 3, 4. Append always adds an element at the end. On the other hand, if you want to add an element in between, then you can use a function insert. So when you say list dot insert I comma x, it inserts an element at a given position. Here, I is the index of the element before which x will be inserted. I can illustrate this with an example. Suppose you have a list A equal to 2 comma 3 and you want to add an element 1 before the element 2. Now if you look at the list A, 2 is at the position 0. This is 0th index, right? So you want to add an element 1 before the 0th index. So in the insert function, I is going to be 0 and x is the element you want to add, which is 1. So I say A dot insert 0, 1. So 1 will be inserted before 2. So your result is going to be list 1 comma 2 comma 3. So when you say print A, this is the result you are going to get. So here you can see that the new element is added at the ith position, right? So after insertion, index of the new element becomes I. Then if you want to count the number of elements in a list, the function is similar to that of string. This is len function. So if A equal to 2, 4, z, then len A gives you the number of elements, which is 3. Same way you can find out the maximum value of the elements in a list. Similarly, minimum value of the elements in the list, you can use max and min function. So if A equal to 1, 2, 3, min A returns you the value 1. Similarly, max A will return you the value 3. And if you say list multiplied by a number, so this is not mathematical multiplication, this is known as concatenation. So this makes a new list which contains the element x times by concatenation. So I will give an example. A equal to list 1, 2, 3. When you say A into 2, basically you will be given a combination of A 2 times. So your output is going to be 1, 2, 3, comma 1, 2, 3. Basically it combines A with itself twice. So this is similar to the string operation. Like suppose you have string A and string B. When you say A plus B, that is not a mathematical addition. Basically string A will be combined with string B, right? So this is a combination. So this is not multiplication. This is a combination or concatenation. Now the question is, how do you add or multiply the elements of a list? Suppose you have list A equal to 1, 2, 3 and list B equal to 1, 2, 3. You want to add the elements of the list. So if you say A plus B, basically this is not going to work as a mathematical operation. This is going to work as a concatenation. You are going to get a combination of these two lists. So your result is going to be 1, 2, 3, comma 1, 2, 3. Same way, if you want to multiply the individual elements of the list, and if you say A multiplied by B, this is not going to work as a mathematical operation. In fact, Python is not going to recognize this operation because Python knows that multiplication works with mathematical variables. So A and B are lists, so Python is going to throw an error message. Now, question is, how do you add and multiply? So for that, you need to use specific functions, and these functions are part of the module known as NumPy. So first you need to load NumPy onto Python, then you need to import the appropriate function. So you type from NumPy import star. This imports all the functions available in the NumPy module. Now if you want to add the elements, you use the function add. So when you say add A comma B, the individual elements of these two lists will be added. So you get 1 plus 1, 2, 2 plus 2, 4, and 3 plus 3, 6. Similarly, if you want to find the product of individual elements of two lists, then you use the function multiply. When you say multiply A comma B, you get the result 1 into 1, 1, 2 into 2, 4, 3 into 3, 9. Same way you can multiply the elements of a list with a constant. Once again use the multiply function, multiply 2 comma A. So all the elements of this list will be multiplied by a constant 2. So result is going to be 2 into 1, 2, 2 into 2, 4, 2 into 3, 6. Okay. So remember the mathematical operation plus and multiplication, this is not going to work with a list. You need to use a specific function from the NumPy module. Another important data type is set. Set is an unordered collection of distinct objects. Unordered means it doesn't support the indexing system. So the sequence-like behavior like indexing, slicing, all those do not work with set. There are two types of set. One is the normal set, which is mutable. You can change the contents of the set. Another type is known as frozen set. This is immutable. You cannot change the elements of a frozen set. Set is defined by a pair of curly brackets. So if you take the previous example, you have elements 1, 2, 3, 4.0 Python. When you define this within a pair of curly brackets, this becomes a set. Here indexing doesn't work. So when you say, if you try to access the 0th element by saying A of 0, this is going to give an error. Okay. So in the case of set, there are no index. Now you can convert a list into a set using the keyword set. Suppose you have a list A equal to 1, 2, 3, 4 Python, and you can convert this into a set by saying A equal to set A. Now when you print A will be printed as a set. Let's now get familiarized with a few important functions in set. First one is len. So len, as always, returns the number of elements in the set. So if your set is 1, 2, 1, when you say len s, this gives you number of elements, which is 3. Next, x in set. This checks if x is an element of the set. If yes, the answer is true, and if no, the answer is going to be false. So basically this is used in conditional checks, in while loops, in if-else statement, etc. Another important function is add. Set.addX. This adds the element x to the end of the set. So this is very similar to the append function in the case of list. For example, if I have a set 1, 2, 3, and I want to add an element 4 at the end of the set, then I say s.add4. So the output is going to be set 1, 2, 3, 4. If I want to remove a particular element from a set, then I can use the function remove set dot remove x. So if s equal to 1, 2, 3, I want to remove 1 from the set, then I say s dot remove 1. So the answer is going to be 2, 3. There is another option to remove a particular element. This is by using a function known as discard. So you can say set dot discard x. Now what is the difference between remove and discard? Both are seemingly doing the same operation, right? So the difference between these two I can illustrate with an example. Suppose you have a set s equal to 1, 2, 3. And you want to remove the element 3, either you can say s dot remove 3 or s dot discard 3. Both will yield you the same result. Now if I say s dot remove 4, what's the meaning? I want to remove element 4 from the set, but 4 is not a part of the set, right? So when you use the remove function, Python will give an error indicating that 4 is not part of your original set. On the other hand, when you use the discard function, if the element is not part of your set, then your set will remain unchanged. So basically when you say print s, you will get the same set s equal to 1, 2, 3. So if your element is part of the set, then remove and discard, they work in the same manner. But if your element is not a part of the set, remove will give an error. On the other hand, discard doesn't do anything to your set. Your set remains unchanged. So this is the difference between remove and discard. Another important function is union. Set dot union set. It creates a new set with elements from both the sets. Suppose you have two sets s and p, s with elements 1 and 2, p with elements 3 and 4. When you say s dot union p, it creates a new set by combining the elements of these two sets. So your output is going to be set 1, 2, 3, 4. Another function is intersection. So set dot intersection set. This creates a new set with elements common to both the sets. So if you have two sets s and p with elements 1, 2, 3 and 2, 3, 4, when you say s dot intersection p, this creates a new set with elements which are common to both s and p. So you can see 2 and 3 are the common elements. So your output is going to be set 2, 3. So that's about set. In reality, you are not going to use set as frequent as list, but nevertheless, it's important that you get familiarized with all the concepts. At this point, we are not doing many example programs. The reason is that most of the programs use either a loop or a conditional statement like if else, and I haven't introduced those two concepts yet. So in the next couple of classes, we will get thorough with these two concepts, the conditional statement and the iteration statement. After that, we will do plenty of example programs. And doing programs is very important because in that way you will improve your knowledge about syntax, and more the number of programs you do, less the number of mistakes you make. Also, doing programs in a way will sharpen your programming logic. Okay. So just wait for a couple of classes, you will get a lot of hands-on experience after that. Another important instruction in Python is the range function. Okay. So range is an instruction used to create a list of integers automatically. And one thing you have to remember is that this is an iterable quantity, meaning it is used only inside loops, in particular for loop. The syntax of range instruction is range bracket start element upper limit and step size. Let's do a couple of examples. For example, when I say range 0, 5, 1. So it creates a list where the starting element is the first element 0. And the ending element is going to be upper limit -1. Just like the slicing case. When you do the slicing, you get the last element -1, right? Same way you have upper limit -1. So your last element is going to be 5 - 1, which is 4. And step size indicates the gap between each element. So here step size is 1. So the list element is going to be 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. If you look at the gap between any two adjacent elements, this is 1, right? That is your step size. If you don't specify the step size, if you say just range 0, 5, the default step size is 1. So once again, you get the same list 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. And if you don't specify the start element, if you only mention the upper limit, by default, the start element is 0, and by default, the step size is 1. So once again, you get the list 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. One thing you have to remember, if you mention something like range 0, 5, comma 0 0.5, here step size is 0 0.5, but here Python is going to throw you an error, because as I mentioned earlier, Python creates a list of integers. But when I say 0 0.5, it is understood that some of the elements are going to be floating numbers, right? Python doesn't accept that. So when you give a float step size, you are going to get an error statement. Python is used mainly inside for loops. So when I introduce for loops, that time we will discuss about the usage of range functions extensively there. But if you're using range function outside of the for loop, you have to be very, very careful. For example, when you say x equal to range 0, 5, 2, and when you say print x, what is the answer you are expecting? You are expecting Python to create a list x where the starting element is 0, the ending element is 5 minus 1, 4, and the step size is 2. So basically you are expecting a list with elements 0, 2, 4. But when you say print x, the answer you are going to get is completely different. Python is going to simply type range 0, 5, 2. Because Python understands that range is supposed to create a list only when you use range inside a loop, inside a for loop. When you use range outside the for loop, Python doesn't understand that it is supposed to create a list. So when you want to create a list outside the for loop, you want to explicitly tell Python that you want a list. So your print statement should be print list x. Now Python knows that, okay, it has to create a list. So now your answer is going to be 0, 2, 4. Okay. So whenever you use range function outside the for loop, always use the prefix list. Okay. Now I have an assignment for you. So when you say x equal to range 0, 5 to print x, you get the output something like this. Now, what is the type of x? Here you have some text and some numbers. Combination of text and numbers are usually string, but you know that usually when you define a string, it is defined inside a pair of single quotation marks or double quotation marks. There are no quotation marks here, right? So this cannot be string. So what is the type of x in this case? So you can check it out for yourself. That's an assignment. As I mentioned, range is explicitly used for list of integers. On the other hand, if you want to create a list of floating point values, then you can use another function, linspace, which is a part of the numpy module. Now the syntax is linspace bracket start stop num. So start is the starting element, stop is the final element, and num indicates the number of elements in the list. So before using linspace, since it is part of the numpy module, you need to first import numpy. First you need to load numpy. So you say from numpy import star. So there is a typo here. This F should be small letter. Okay. So from numpy import star. Now you can say, okay, x equal to linspace 2, 3, 5. So Python is going to create a list where the starting element is 2, the ending element is going to be 3, and the number of elements is going to be 5. So when you say print x, what is going to be your output? So this is the homework for you. You can do it for yourself. So that's for today. In the next class, we will talk about one of the most important components in any programming language, which is the conditional statement. So stay tuned for that. Thank you.